Hey. Welcome to the very much anticipated live discussion for this month's Nostalgia Train book club pick, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm your host, Violet, and I'm joined by Sam. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
One moment as I changed my name because I just realized it still said 31.99. Hi, I'm Writing Mom Samantha Ilnasset. On my channel, I host writing live on Mondays. I host writing live streams, parties, let's talks. I do a lot of things. I've started a flash fiction free for all once a quarter. It's a good time. If you would like to check out some free samples of my stuff, I have a flash fiction and a short story on my website, samanthailnasset.com. If you would like to sign up to my newsletter, keep up to date with all things Sam, you can do that too. And if you like the nostalgia train, like the stream, subscribe, ring a ding the bell, and
Wow.
join the Discord. Everything's linked below.
Look, you did all the promo for me. Sam, you're now like a returning book club guest because you've been here a few
This is like my
times.
third or
It
fourth.
is correct. So, old hat at this now. So, maybe I should introduce also myself and the book. Yeah. So, um, the Raven Boys. Um, this book became the book club pick because had a forum like putting like things people were interested in, and the Raven Boys was tied with one other book like as the last like selection for the year. And I was the tiebreaker. I picked the Raven Boys over the other book. Um, and apparently I maybe was one of the only people excited about it. I've tried kind of been like hard selling the book, like trying to get people to read it.
I
And
was hesitantly excited, but now I'm very excited. So
the thing
I'm very
is,
glad.
I have heard a lot about the Raven Boys on BookTube. I had never read it, but it's one of those books I hear people talk about, and I was worried because like Throne of Glass was kind of a flop, but in that I had also heard about just buzz and hadn't read it. And I went in completely blind, and I have to say I was so just generally pleasantly surprised with the book of how well it held up from being a 10-year-old book. Like
Yes.
compared to
I
some of the other
also
older titles that we've
I
covered.
also went in totally blind. Like I only knew the title and that it was popular, and that was like it. And I think the most I heard about it, like I was at less than an hour in during the Troublemaker stream, and somebody like tried to summarize the book. And one of the things was they were like, it takes place in the Midwest. And I was sitting there like, I'm an hour in, and I have definitely heard not Midwest things, but it's southern ish area. And then they're like, they're in Virginia. And I'm like, that is not the Midwest. Hold on now. And the
Yeah.
narrator has such a wonderful southern drawl. I was like,
Yeah, I also listened to it as an audiobook, but I have the physical book here as well, just for holding up purposes, which I forgot to hold it up.
you got it now, though. So
Oh, look, people are actually here with us. Hi, Casey. Casey didn't get the library hold, so couldn't join us because she couldn't reread. But I know Casey read the book before. So I, in fact, didn't finish the book as predicted. You can't speed up Spotify. Okay. Lexi says, oh my goodness, it's the besties. Hi, Cool Gamer. Hello, Pages and Paladins. And hi, Michael. Um, I'm not sure if I'm ready to put up the spoilers banner yet. If I still just want to talk about general Raven Boysness. Oh, the thing about the Raven Boys is I wasn't even sure the exact genre of this book going in. I was like, is this just like a prep school, academy, boarding school book? Part of me thought that that's what this book was.
academia.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of going to be an academic book just because I had seen the other version. Well, my this version from my library doesn't have the silhouette of the boys, but some of them have like them in their school
Yeah, I
uniforms.
the audiobook I listened to did.
Yeah, so I guess that's was kind of like the picture that I associated with the Raven Boys was like boys in school uniforms. So I was like, is this just an academic book? And I kind of
I
almost thought it might be British. Definitely not.
I
Like,
didn't even have that much. I was just like, it's called the Raven Boys. Let's go. And then the main character, and then we start in with Blue, and I'm like, you are not a Raven boy? Question mark. I was like, where are we going now? But it like started out the gate with like magic and super. I'm like, I'm here for it. Is she gonna befriend a bunch of raven shifters? Or we going with a murder here? I was excited.
Well, I actually read it, during the Summer Scare readathon that Jessica hosts. So
Hmm.
that was some weeks ago. So it's not quite fresh in my head, the
Right.
book, but I was like, is this even like a spooky book? Like, I thought like for the prompt, spooky word in the title, I'm like, ravens are spooky, right? So I was like really trying to justify reading it. But then I got into it, and like right away, the first page, they're talking about like psychics, clairvoyance. I'm like, okay, graveyards. This
This
totally
counts.
counts as a spooky vibes book.
Yes. I have to
So
correct myself real quick. I made murder a joke. That's crows, not ravens. I know they're like almost the same bird, but
that
I'm pedantic, so I was like,
yeah, that's a good
fuck it.
point. That's a very good point. It's very vibey. I think vibey is a
It
great way to
is.
describe the book.
Yeah, it has a great atmosphere.
I'm gonna put up also now the spoilers banner, so if anybody doesn't want to be spoiled about the Raven Boys.
Bye.
I know everybody was very invested in this book. What I was going to say is I think the book did a really good job, which even though it is kind of doing a lot on vibes, it really sets up this idea of Blue and Gansey being connected. So even where there's parts where it's not like plot heavy, you know that there's this kind of connection between them of like her seeing him
their
on Sank's Marks Eve and everything.
their
So it's like,
fates are intertwined in
yeah,
some way,
yeah,
regardless of how they're intertwined. Their fates are definitely intertwined.
yeah. So I think that that holds the reader's attention even in parts where it's maybe not very I don't know. Yeah, more worse just kind of coasting on vibes. So in a way that I
I
might critique other books for doing that.
I was invested in each and every one of our little teenagers, so I like didn't really if there were down parts, I didn't care or they didn't bother me. So,
I have to say personally, like sometimes with like large like ensemble casts or like big casts, I can get very confused. And that was like no different for this book. I went in, I was very confused at the beginning, like Gansey, Ronan, Adam, Noah, like Blue, Neve, her mom,
yes,
like
I like tried to make notes on who was who. I was like, my Milo note board is gonna look like
yeah,
by the
it
time I'm
really
done.
bombards you with a lot of characters right up front.
And
And
I feel like it's mildly jarring when it goes from like it's blue and they make this big deal about Gamzee and all of this stuff, and then you go to a male perspective and it's not Gamzee, and you're like, wait, hold on, who are you? Why do I care about you? But I actually love that it did that because then the first like view we get of Gamzee is not through Gamzee's perspective.
yeah,
It's through like his best friend who may or may not be a little bit in love with him. The way it was described, I was like, Adam, sir. I don't usually pick up. I have to be hit in the head with like vibes like this because I just try not to assume any sexuality in existence until I'm told otherwise. But Adam, my dude, you a little in love with Gamzee? This is the vibe I'm picking up.
yeah, I definitely just kind of went along for the ride. Like I didn't take notes. I was like, should I take notes? Because also it got confusing because Ronan's brother Declan was also early on there. I was
Yeah, he's
like,
like
wait,
introduced before some of the like, important, and like he's introduced as like yes, this is an obnoxious fuckboy, but it's the obnoxious fuckboy that like Adam accepts his existence, and then Rowan's like this is like an omnibus antagonist person who terrifies, and like Adam hates Rowan, and I'm like, wait, so is Declan one of the Raven, or is it wrong? Okay, they're brothers. I've got
yeah,
that much now. Why is he bringing his date that he's gonna try to get in her pants to his little brother's friend's crib? What is going on?
yeah, it was definitely very confusing at first. And like, so those early chapters with the boys, I definitely kind of like yeah, just I just listened to the audiobook and just let it kind of be. I wasn't like trying too hard to investigate. I was like, with time, they're naturally gonna like stick out to me as characters, and that definitely happened.
Yes.
So like I put like little like notes like for who like Gansey is Mr. Cell Phone because that's what is that what Blue called him? Mr.
Oh,
Cell Phone.
it was something along like President cell phone
Yeah.
or something like that.
So having like little nicknames and things to remember them. Ronan is the best character.
I do
I
not disagree, but he's like the sad bad boy, and that's like right up my alley. So I'm like, this Rowan was destined to be my favorite.
oh see, I love Adam. I think I just kind of I loved one of the kind of themes in this book that I love, and I also do it in my writing a lot. Is sort of rich kids, poor kids.
I like I will say right this. All five of the main characters are my children now. They're all mine. So I love all of them. But but Rowan was my favorite. Adam and Gamzee, I gave both gave me mixed feelings because I related to both of them in different ways. Like poor white trash Adam, why am I in this book? But then also Adam has this insecurity, like this inferiority complex with Gamzee that I'm like definitely don't relate to. That I was poor. I knew what I didn't care that other people had money. Like and then Gamzee, who's well educated and uses like big words and stuff, and Adam gets mad at him for that. And I'm like, I relate to that because, like, legit, when I was in middle school, I enjoyed reading thesauruses. I enjoyed reading dictionaries because I just liked words. I liked language. So I built up an expansive vernacular. And like I would genuinely at like 13 just be like, "Oh yeah, I'll contemplate on that and get back to you." And then everyone else is like, "Why are you trying to sound so smart?" And I'm like, I just like the word contemplate. It's very specific. You know? So I dumbed myself down in high school. And so like at the part of the book where Gamzee's like, I'm not trying to make you feel stupid. This is just how I talk. I'm like, you say it, Gamzee. Some of us just have $5 words. That's where all our paycheck goes.
Yeah,
But
but like even on the topic of $5 words, I think also just the writing style of this
oh
book,
yeah.
um, even though it is still very prominently a YA book and has a lot of YA conventions, it is like the writing style is a little bit different than some YAs I've read before, where it's not.
It doesn't treat the reader like they're stupid. It doesn't hold
No,
your hand.
it definitely has like a little bit of a higher learning curve, especially with this very kind of soft magic system that's happening. Where
Sometimes I needed my handheld and I was lonely in the dark, but it's okay. I found my way out. So,
yeah, they really don't explain a lot about how like the ley lines and some of the
oh,
magical things are working.
so while I do think that that could have been explained a little bit better, I liked the way that it was done in which like you're getting her explanation for the ley lines, you're getting Gamzee's explanation for the ley lines. Normally in something like this you would then get a third like educated person's
Yeah.
experts. Our Merlin did not exist here. uh but like for me, I like Welsh mythology. And so a lot of this, I'm like, they're like going into the thing, and I'm like, oh God, it's Faye timey wimey bullshit. And then like they reveal that time is stopped and stuff. And I'm like, yes. And then he puts his hand in and it's the waters. And in my notes, I'm like, oh my God, is this illusionary stuff? Is this like intent and everything? And then it was. So I was like, I was so stoked that they were using that kind of a magic system because it's not a kind of magic system that I've normally if anybody mentions Fae or Celtic mythology and stuff, it's very Seelie, unseelie court, or just like
Yes.
whatever William Shakespeare made up and put forth into the universe. And so I get like very sad because I'm like, but Celtic and like Welsh mythology, I don't know if they're considered the same and I don't want to offend anybody, but Celtic and Welsh mythologies are like so cool and there's so much to pull from. And this definitely to me had a very heavy feel in there, and I was like, yes. And I like how they start out explain Gamzee starts out explaining like real world phenomenons that like people don't know, like I forgot what it's called, but like the lines dug
Mm-hmm.
in the sand. And then it transitions to a made up one that is just in the book, but it like gives the readers a real world thing to pull from so that when the new thing comes up, it's not weird. It just feels like it fits, which is very important when you're writing magic into a contemporary setting.
Yeah, I think she did a really good job of sort of balancing, grounding the real world with having this sort of like realistic whimsy. Like,
Fairy tale
yeah,
magic.
it had like a very again, kind of like back what Casey said, it's very vibey, where things do feel so grounded, but at the same time, the magic is such a big part of it.
It's I think the technical term is it's intrusive fantasy. It's where fantasy intrudes on the real world.
Yeah, I think it was really well done, and I really kind of liked Gansey's sort of obsession with Glendower and the ley lines, and you know, it just it brought really this sort of lore factor to it, where it felt, yeah, kind of adventurous. And I think I also liked the inclusion of Latin.
Yes.
Like when they were talking about them in Latin class, and like, oh, Ronan, he's like naturally talented at Latin, and I was like, oh, this is gonna come back around. They're
Like, oh,
not
but
mentioned.
is he? But is he?
This is gonna come back around. So when it paid off and it did come back around, I was like, okay, okay,
It's like, I see.
yeah. um, wait a minute, I do have banners. I mean, like evergreen banners that I always use.
Evergreen banners were made for days like today.
Yeah, I mean, like I have plot and pacing, but I have like themes and symbols, which I mean, I already talked about rich kids, poor kids, but also just
Yes.
like we have like ravens in general. We have a lot of car motif images. There's a lot of like ongoing, yeah, images that are
Status.
very.
There's a lot of which one of the reasons I like this book so much is it's a lot of it sets up archetypes and then like breaks those archetypes down in a way. It's like Gamzee, you have the two poor kids, right? You've got
Mhm.
Blue and you've got Adam, and they like kind of bond and talk about like
Yeah.
how Gamzee's accidentally condescending all the time and he just doesn't understand like money and stuff.
Hmm.
And then like you see Gamzee's perspective and he's like, well, no, I am dumb with money. I don't actually understand the value of a dollar. But at the same time, at the same time, he's so like conscious of it. And he tries so hard not to do that, which is such a contrast to normally when you have a rich kid character like that. They just don't care, or they flaunt it, or they do whatever, or it's like, oh, it's everybody else's problem. And then like Rowan is our bad boy who may be flunking out of school and he is also one of the rich kids. He's not the like poor kid from the wrong side of the tracks. So and he's if I'm understanding the dynamics correctly, he's also like the smartest one of the boys, or like perceived to have the greatest potential to do the best academically of
Yeah,
all
he
of them,
has
and
like
just does not care.
he definitely has this sort of diamond in the rough feel to him, where
Yes.
it's like, if you only applied yourself,
And he's
like,
like, but why should I? That's the better question.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
also really love Noah. And I love that, like, everybody's like, "Oh, you're always cold." And Noah's like, "Well, yeah, because I'm dead." I almost didn't catch it before the reveal because I was like, "Me too."
Okay, so I
Me
want to
too,
talk about
Noah.
Noah for a second.
Okay, yes.
I well, after that I read the book, I heard that a lot of people were like, this was like a big shocking reveal. But like right when they introduce him, like they say like, oh, and
Because
there's a
I'm dead.
ghost in our house, or and he says things like I'm dead. So I just took them for face value when they said it. I was like, oh yeah, he's a ghost. Like, so that it was when it was revealed, I was like, oh, I thought that was already known. I thought they already knew.
You, like, took it literally, I took it sardonically. Because like, I too am always like an icicle Noah, and, because chronic migraines, I too am always dead, like, but
Yeah.
then the more we learn about Welk and stuff, I'm like, oh shit, is Noah Welk's dead friend? Is Noah legit a ghost? And then my favorite thing with that reveal is just they're like, you're dead. And he's like, I told you.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
like, that's the only right reaction right there. It's like, I told you. And then Rowan, oh my god, I love his reaction because he's like, all those nights you bitched about me keeping you up. You don't need to sleep. You're a ghost. And there's like later on too, Rowan just like comes back to it and he's like, all those times I asked you to borrow notes. You couldn't give me your class notes. And you're like, Rowan, you should go to class. You don't go to class.
Yeah, that's like one thing I noticed right away. They kind of had like mentioned like, oh, we have a ghost in our house, or I don't remember how they worded it. And then I was like, oh, Noah's never at, he's not at school
Mhm.
with them. All the school scenes, he's not there. And I was like, oh, okay, he's really a ghost. But then when Blue could see and interact with Noah too, I was like, oh, is he a ghost or like what's going on? So, but again, I kind of liked the
The
ambiguity
MB, yes. The way it
of
makes
some
you
of it.
question it is,
Yeah, it definitely made you question where it did. It straight up told you he was a ghost. But
but was he? But
yeah,
yes, he is.
yeah. I didn't put the connection though together that he was Welk's friend or that he had been like a ghost like for years. That went over my head until it was revealed. I was like, "Oh, okay. That was like a cool tie-in."
I I'm trying to. Well, it's so I had started suspecting Noah was like a real ghost right before the scene with Welks's friend dying. So it was like
Mhm.
very fresh at the front of my mind. I'm like, okay, but if Noah's a ghost, that's got to be important. Noah can't just be a random ass ghost. And then like Welks was talking about like the accident with his friend where like his friend died and is like they were just boys and it didn't give me the friend's name or something. And I was just something about that. I was like, is Wilk's friend Noah? Noah, have you been stuck as a teenager for however many years? And then, like, it's either right before then or right after then, Gamzee talks about how when he almost died from his wasp thing. And the ley line was like, somebody died so that you could live. And I was like, no one died so you could live, sir. You
I
owe him.
really loved that parallel. And I just put on the audiobook this morning to like refresh my memory since I had read it some weeks ago. And like right away when Ganzi's like coming in and talking about his car, he mentions like his EpiPen lying there. I was like, "Oh my god, like they put that like so early as like a weird little Easter egg and didn't explain his allergy until like way later." I was like, "That was nice foreshadowing."
I I I just heavily associate EpiPens with peanut butter allergies, even though no one in my family has a peanut butter allergy, but several people have a bee allergy. So I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Why do I always default to peanut butter?
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
really liked the inclusion of his allergy in the bee allergy. I thought it was, yeah, it's something that I thought about when I wasn't reading. Like it made me think about the book like, oh, okay, like, and I think anytime a book can kind of like
make you
cre-
think about it when you're
yeah,
not
creep
reading
into
it.
your
Yes.
just random thoughts, I'm like, okay, you're doing something. Yeah, I really am surprised, like I said before, how well I feel like this book holds up over time, considering it to some of the other like 2012 books, the books of the era. um yeah, it's okay, it's not the most I would say like diverse book,
No, unfortunately.
but it was also not like super problematic or super cliche. Is that what I want to say? It
I
had
I
an originality to it.
yeah, I say this because I can't think of a better way to say it. It's like it's a really good book. Cast wise, very bland because like most of them can fit into uh I don't want to say straight white because none of their sexualities were confirmed for me, but they just seemingly they can all fit into like if people had to stand in a category they can all fit into that one category. But class wise it was very diverse and mixed up, and personality wise and dynamics. So it's like, well, from what I know of the books, or from at least from book one, I would never recommend it as a diversity read. It's still a really good read on its own.
Yeah. But I think also coming back to what you said earlier about it kind of like taking sort of these stereotype archetypes and just twisting them a little that the characters felt real and didn't feel like cardboard cutouts or like one note characters. There was definitely dimension to this ensemble
Yes.
cast, which was I think really impressive. And you could definitely feel also the relationships between like the individual characters, the dynamics they had with each other.
Oh yes, they all the inter character relationship dynamics were done so well that you could feel when Rowan and Adams shifted on Rowan's half. Even though it hadn't quite shifted on Adams' half, you knew something had changed for Rowan.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like because Rowan's like, when I thought Gamzee died, I thought, it got me thinking about stuff. And Adam wanted to dismiss it because it's like unimportant. Because he doesn't particularly like Rowan, so he doesn't care. But for me, I'm like, Rowan just realized that if Gamzee died, and like, because this is also after he realized and grieved that Noah is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like Noah's dead. If Gamzee died, it would just be Rowan and Adam. So like for me, Adam just became so much more of a thing to Rowan,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like so much more important. That's what I'm looking. It's like before it's just, yeah, this is my friend's friend that I kind of like hang
Yes.
around with and
Yeah.
bully, but now it's like it would just be me and him. And then like from that moment, that is Adam's guard dog. He's gonna protect him, and then like right there, that's when he like went in and beat the shit out of Adam's dad for hurting him with no regrets.
Yeah, I really think that was done so well. And also, like, even talking about Blue and her sort of connection both with Adam, and then she has this connection with Gansey as well. Um, I found it, I can understand why people get very, like, heavy or strong feelings about, like, ships and shipping the characters because it was set up in a way where it's like, okay, you're kind of rooting for different dynamics going on. Because like we said, Gansey and Blue have their fates intertwined some way.
Yes,
And
and Gamzee, see, I think that Gamzee just has a problem with people not liking him. He's just not used to not being liked. So just the thought that somebody doesn't like him makes him feel really uncomfortable. So he goes out of his way to try to get her to like him and everything. And this makes Adam very insecure because he's like, is he flirting with her? Is he like trying to get her? Like, please, sir, don't try to take this from me. You have so much already. Whereas in reality, it's just Gamzee going, I can't be hated by people. And
yeah,
and Blue's like, well, visions say you're my true love, but I'm really into you and I can't kiss anybody. So
I also think the book did a good job is setting up the series. Like I said, I plan. Well, actually, I didn't say I am
yes.
planning to continue the series, and I think it did a really
Exactly.
good job of introducing a lot of things, and then not explaining everything.
That book one cliffhanger though.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that's how you get my money, 100%, but also I will curse thy name until I have the next book.
Casey says, when I was re listening, I heard them drop the ghost thing early on and was baffled I didn't catch on to it before the
Guess
big
they're
reveal.
it's like because they're very sardonic teenagers. So you're like, yeah, he's just making a joke. It's fine.
Yeah, for
There was a
sure.
point in time when I was like, is Gamzee already dead though? Is Gamzee the ghost?
Yeah, I started to question at a certain point too. Like,
Especially like the wasp thing. I'm like, is this the reveal? Is he the one Wilkes killed? Was I wrong? Was it not Noah?
I think it holds up because it wasn't doing the most popular tropes everyone expected.
For I agree and disagree with this concept. I don't think it's because it didn't do popular tropes, because it does have popular tropes in
Hmm.
it. I think it stands up because the author had a story and they wanted to tell the story and they told that story well. Because archetypes are not bad. Like, all good characters can be broken down to an archetype. That's why archetypes exist. That's why they are a thing. But like, you take that archetype, like you can break me down to several different archetypes. Group mom as the low hanging fruit. Gamer girl as another one. I have a Zelda headset. I'm wearing a Zelda tank top. This is my Switch. Like, uh, yeah. But the thing is, as Violet said earlier, people are more complex than our archetypes.
Yeah.
And so to make a good character who feels alive, you take that archetype and you add depth, you add layers. You're like, okay, how would a real person who also fits into this archetype react to these things? How might they not react to these things? Gamzee might be more empathetic because of his life or death thing, or maybe it's because he befriended Adam and like his best friend's a poor guy, so like it's opened his eyes to the differences in the world, and that's why he tries to be different versus like uh Helen, who doesn't seem to care. And I love the rich people family thing where it's like, is it glassware? And Helen's so mad about it, and his dad's like, why would she do that? And he's like, I told her. I'm like, that's such a
That's another
family.
thing that really
That is
stuck
such
with
a
me. It felt
family
so
thing.
real. It's almost was like I was thinking like, "Oh, which one of my friends had that thing with glass again?" I was like, "That was from a book, Violet." Like, what the hell?
And then also like her whole family is just like a house full of women and everything, and it didn't fall back on, in order for the teenagers to be the heroes, the adults had to be useless. No, like Gamzee's parents were the understandable amount of disconnected from their son who goes to a boarding school's life. Her mom was as involved as a mother can be with a teenager who keeps running out and avoiding her. And it's like, and they were like, hey, we're gonna help you during like the final climax of the book. So they were like still very involved. So the like normal complaints that one would have with these tropes didn't exist. And like Rowan's dad is dead, and we have no idea what's up with his mom. That's like a mystery
Yeah, also
yet to be
Blue's
revealed.
dad is still a mystery. I love that they kind of brought it
Yes.
up but didn't finish it. I have to agree. I think like as far as like YA parents go, this book did a really good job of like including the parents, mentioning them, and also making them feel like real people. Like Blue's mom
Yeah.
felt like a real mom to me. Like
Especially when she like starts that conversation with Blue and she's like drinking and all happy, and Blue's like, all right, something's up. Oh, she's pissed.
yeah, definitely. I
And
think
the
also just Blue as a character, the fact that she's in this magical family and she does not have like the clairvoyance, the sight, it just sets her up in a very interesting way where it's like, okay, we kind of know she's like has a little bit like amplifying power to them, but it definitely kind of didn't fully go for this trope, but it kind of resonated with me in this like anti-chosen one space, like, oh, your whole family has powers and not you, and I'm like, okay, I like this. I'm just a sucker for that. So
yes.
oh, Casey says, I will also say there is more rep in the second book. I've heard the second book is the best book in the Raven Cycle. I'm not sure how many books. I'm
Mm.
not even sure how many books are in the Raven Cycle, and I know there's like a spin-off
There's
series or a
four, at
four.
least.
Okay,
Yeah, I think there's four. There's the Raven Boys, and then I'm reading Dream Thieves. Then either three or four is the Raven King, and I forgot the title of the other one.
um,
But yeah, I finished book one, and I was like, and I'm gonna add all these to my wish list.
yeah. I also was like hovering my finger over it on like the library app, but I was like, no, no, I'm gonna wait until after the live show because I didn't want to get confused. But um, dreams, I mean, is a theme
Yes,
that is
dreams,
definitely set up
dreams
as a
and visions.
yeah.
I also like how they specify like part of the reason they do the three people readings is because it's like interpretations of signs. So it's like this one thing that like that's not necessarily 100% what that is. And then like when Gamzee pulls the death card, and Blue and the
Hmm.
psychics and stuff, they're like, oh, because he's gonna die. But like one of the boys is like, I've heard that that's like metaphorical, and they're like, yeah, sometimes, but not this time. But then like later, when he's talking about like his wasp allergy and he's like staring at the wasp, and I'm like, oh, so he's staring death in the face. So he walks hand in hand with death. So that's where we're going with that. And then he says it's like looking death in the face, and I was like, damn, I'm good.
Yeah,
But
really,
I
death was also
loved
just
it.
a beautiful like theme and motif of the whole story. Yeah, even them like starting out in the graveyard when they first like meet in this weird plane on St. Mark's Eve or whatever. It, it, I really
The
appreciated
corpse
how
bride.
like the symbols and motifs really were fluid throughout, and also kind of setting things up for a series. I've heard that the series has really good rereadability, and I can definitely see that. Even like I said, me just
Oh,
listening to
definitely.
the beginning and noticing that EpiPen there, I was like, oh, that was clever.
Clever girl, clever. Casey somehow owns book 2 on Audible, but none of you.
Yeah, I'm like that with
I
some
mean,
series where I'll have like one is an ebook, book two is a physical book, and then gotten book three as an audiobook. Like, what am I doing? There are four in the Raven cycle and four in the next spinoff. Okay.
I'm excited to get to all 7 remaining ones.
Yeah, I
I have
definitely plan on finishing up the series. Like I say, like I'm actually surprised more people weren't interested in this like for the book
I
club.
I think it's just like because YA has such a bad rep now because it was oversaturated for a while because they were aging down all of those adult series and trying to sell it as YA, and then there were a bunch of people capitalizing on it. But there's actually like a ton of good YA out there. Excuse. Now I have to. No, I can't skip to the spinoff. Why would you tell me this, Casey? Why would you?
Yeah,
It's my
I
boy.
definitely think maybe also just because like I said for me there was some genre confusion about not really understanding that this had like such a big magical element in it.
That definitely looks like an Edgar Allan Poe poetry book. Which it started out with like my very first note is yes, we're starting out with the Edgar Allan poem The Raven. How could I expect anything else?
Yeah, I was also so shocked when they're like, oh, and they're the right at the beginning when she's like, yeah, their emblem is a raven, so that's why we call them the Raven Boys. I was like, badonk,
Title
like
drop.
I never thought like I thought it was gonna like
Yes.
be a very subtle like
I'm
the
talking
Raven
about
Boys
bird
like
boys, not kitty girls, so you're upset. It's fine.
like like some titles like the reader kind of has to put together or they don't like name drop the title and when they just
Or
name
you
dropped
like
it right
gotta
away.
wait till the end of the book and then you're like, oh
I
damn,
get
that's
it.
why. No, this one's like you're gonna know.
Like I know during the Twilight live show we were talking about like a Twilight and the imagery and the life, the death, the in between, and like it's like and this one is like nope, the Raven Boys like which is weird
It's a
because the
much
book
better
itself
word than the
has
Agly. The Aglin? Agly?
Eglin B. Yeah,
Eglin
very
B. Thank you.
a weird pretentious mouthful. But the thing is the book has such a pretentious like flowy magic vibes, gritty realism. So it's like if anything is going to go for like a pretentious weird title, like this book could have done it.
It could have been the Angly Bee Boys, and then I'd just be like, the what?
Yeah, I always feel this way sometimes when it's like Blue was, I mean, arguably the alpha protagonist of the book. And when the title doesn't reflect her and reflects the boys, okay, I can
It's
understand like
because they're her
it
boys,
is true. They are her
which is
Raven
why they
boys.
should be a polycule. I stand by this. At least at the end of book 1, I want them all to be a polycule.
Oh, what's Casey saying? Pretty bad when my hold for the graveyard book comes in before my hold for the Raven boys.
I'm sorry. I was like, okay, I might as well go put in a hold for book 2 for the Raven Boys in my library, and I'll be able to, like get some work and stuff done this week. And then my library was like, yeah, there's no hold on book 2 through 4. And I'm like, why would you tell me this? Library. But, here we go. So
Yeah.
I had no self control. I kept telling myself I needed to wait till after the stream.
Well, the thing is, I didn't realize that people start like in like the bookish world, kind of, or maybe even just an author tube, or maybe just in life. People start getting like fall spooky season vibes already, like in August. So I was like, oh, I guess it was kind of appropriate that I picked this book, which had some ghosty vibes, and then the graveyard book for next month as the pick, because okay, we're already getting real spooky. But then for October, I have Shadow and Bone, which is not at all spooky.
It sounds spooky. I've never read that one either, so
That one was one that I did not want to read, but the people voted for it. So, in this one, the people
well,
didn't really vote for, it, and I picked, and nobody wanted to read it with, which I really think jokes on them because it was such a solid book. So,
it's a great YA book.
I think
I
like
mean, it's a great book in general, but
yeah, for somebody like me who pretty much exclusively writes YA, to have a book that stands the test of time like this one has, it
yes.
is it, that's the dream. Like
Some other reasons I think it stands the test of time is one, the like struggles in the book are timeless struggles, right? Struggling with things in your family, with bills, with having friends that don't belong to like the same financial section as you.
yeah,
I completely blanked on the word because it's like that is a little bit of a struggle sometimes because like your friends, speaking as somebody who has straddled like poverty to middle class my entire life, sometimes like your friends with money just like really don't understand what you're going through, or like they can even become a little impatient with some of your problems sometimes. And then, like, on the other hand, you're sitting here like, I'm struggling to make sure that we have like groceries all the week. And like your friend has just, uh, I'm trying to think of an example. And your friend is like, they're like relaying their struggle that they can't find the right people to hire for cleaners. And you're like, I wish that was my
yeah.
problem. Like, I can't even get out of bed to clean my house. I wish I could just be like, do I want to hire this service or that service? And it's like, I feel like both struggles are valid. It's just hard when you're friends because sometimes negative feelings can crop up.
Yeah, this book definitely did have a really good lens at both sort of class dynamics, where it's
Yes.
like Adam wasn't just the scholarship kid, like it dug into a little bit who he was, as well as like Gansey and Ronan, who did come from money, and they also weren't just the stereotypical rich boy. They were rich boys, but they had other things going on. But I also wondered at some point, was like the sort of romance or attraction between Blue and Adam because they were from sort of the same class
Oh,
dynamic?
she 100% that had to do with it. She wrote Gamzee off because he like had money. She was going to write Adam off until she noticed that his sweater was frayed, and that's why she was like, okay, maybe he's not such a rich,
Yeah.
something. So it does good highlighting the prejudice from both sides and like the perspective and how like they can get along and stuff, but even like when they start getting along, uh there's still like issues that can crop up, or like I feel when Gamzee and Adam had like their fight, it was a much needed fight to get everything out in the air. And I am really glad that Adam stuck to his guns to like get his own place instead of moving in with Gamzee, because Adam wants to be Gamzee's equal, and he perceives that Gamzee's apartment and everything is like that's Gamzee's.
Yeah,
That's everything
he
that
doesn't
Gamzee
want to
has.
almost be like a possession of Gansey, and
Yes.
it does seem like that it's like you don't own me, like
But like
I'm your friend as an equal, like
Rowan is totally fine with it. He's like, yeah, Gamzee can get me out of trouble. Gamzee can take care of me. Gamzee can call up the school and speak on behalf of me. Like, don't. Oh, the library would really. I'm like, sir, can I have a Gamzee? Gamzee.
yeah, it was a
I'm
really
Rowan in this
interesting
situation.
dynamic. So I can see why this like ensemble cast is so endearing to readers. Um, Also, I did have this banner, found family versus actual family, which everybody knows like found family is like just an evergreen favorite of
I
readers.
I liked that it was mixed. That because a lot of books will go one way or the other. They'll be like, oh, blood is thicker than water, or they'll be like, oh no no, fuck that, water is thicker than blood, boo boo. And it's like I liked that it was mixed up because like Adam's actual family was terrible. Very clear they didn't care for him in the way that parents should care for their children. Why do I have oh, that's to go get the kids along. Uh, and but it also like showed a very realistic struggle of why he wouldn't just abandon or leave that situation even if he had other options. And then with Rowan's is far more complicated because like his big brother does seem to care about him. He's not his dad. He's not his mom. He like Declan. I'm not the biggest fan of Declan, but I do feel that Declan is written in such a way that you can tell that is still a kid at heart,
Mm-hmm.
and like he's been thrust into a position where he is basically having to raise his two brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and Rowan is resisting this at every turn, and like Declan doesn't know what to do. And so like Gamzee's like, "Hey, I'll, take care of Rowan and I'll help." And Declan's like, "Okay, then do it. But if you can't do it, then I'm going to have to step up and do it." And it's like Gamzee, who for some reason it's just very good at handling this situation, like does it. And then Gamzee actually seems to come from a fine, like, they're pretty good family. Like he and his sister are very sibling-ish. He sweet talks her into landing that helicopter when she's like, "No, I'll lose my license." And he's like, but sis. And she's like, "God, I hate having a brother. Just
I
why?"
was honestly surprised, like how I guess functional his family was
Yes.
despite everything, because I think that's like a trope you would think like, oh, this rich
Mhm.
family, they're going to be like very corrupt and very like cold and detached,
Yeah.
and that wasn't really the case. Like he seemed to
No.
be really on good terms with his family.
Like his dad noticed he was missing from the party and came out to check on him, and like a very I like like that dad way of, "I don't actually know how to connect with you, but I want to make sure you're okay. So let's just talk, champ." Way
Yeah, and
at
I think
the
sometimes when you have this over the top wealth in stories, um, it gets over the top where it doesn't have like those human moments that are more realistic to what
mhm.
families would be like, despite having money as like another member of the family in a way.
Money is my eldest child.
Yeah,
Helen is the second.
yeah, for sure.
And I like how, like, with Gamzee and his family, it's and then we go like, well, we don't really know anything about Noah's family until the end.
That's true. Yeah,
But then we go to like Blue's family, and her mom, she's like, "My mom's terrible at discipline, so I can do whatever I want." And at the beginning she's like, "I don't even feel bad." And then later she's like, "I feel a little bad." And I'm like, "That, yeah, yeah."
oh, I'm not gonna sneeze. Yeah, it is kind of like an interesting dynamic because, like I said, the book kind of I've heard like the criticism of it being like Blue with a cast of boys, but she does come from such this
Yeah,
female
there may
household.
there may be more female characters than male characters. They're just not the central main characters, but they're also not no name. Like, I know their personalities. I know their like shtick. I know their thing.
Yeah, it, yeah. Again, there was just so many parts of this story that I found myself in my real life reflecting on, or that like I don't know, just stuck with me in different ways. Which I mean, again, anytime a book can do that, it's like okay, you're doing something right. I don't know if it was the writing style or just like again the archetypes and the tropes having like small subversions to them, but it was
And
just really solid to me.
like all of the characters felt like characters, no matter how little or how big their role was. Like, I think her name was Orla.
Hmm.
It's like, I didn't particularly care about Orla. They kept bringing up that she's like sexy on the phone and stuff,
Yeah.
and makes good money. And I'm like, "Okay, cool, good for Orla. You get your bag." And then like there's a conversation where Blue's talking to Orla, and they just have such a cousin argument. And I was like, "Oh my damn, they are related."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, you just wish this was your job." And she's like, "No, like, psh, at least with my job, I don't have to pretend to be sexy and shit." And Orla's like, "You sound like your snooty friend." And then like starts doing an exaggerated accent to like make fun of her. And it like comes this close to boiling down to Blue just going, "Mom, Orla's picking on me again."
Yeah, even like
Like,
Blue's whole household really has that mix of found family, actual family, because it is a mix of her actual family and other just like
mhm.
clairvoyant women who are just in and out or there. Like I felt like there was never like a real number of how many people were in that house or
Yeah, I have
coming
no
in and
idea.
out.
There were at least, hold on. There's Persephone, love her, by the way, she's so great. Uh Kara? Kara?
Oh, I forgot about her. Yeah.
The like the audiobook gave her an older voice, so I assume she's a little bit older, like sassy one. I
Hmm.
love her. Uh then there's Blue and her mom, and then Orla at least. So
And
there's at
Neve.
least five. And Neve, whom I was like, this bitch is sus. Like, she's suspicious. Don't trust her. And then like all those things.
I think they also could have went into a very like I don't know, like Halloween Town whimsy with this household of like magical women,
Yeah,
but
like how
they kept
big
it
is this
quite
house?
yeah,
Where
but
are
they
they all
kept it kind of
staying?
that perfect balance again of grounded and magical, which was like, okay, like her mom feels like a mom, like her cousin feels like a cousin, but
It feels
also
it feels like this is definitely not how it was because the book isn't quite this into magic, but it definitely feels like the house would look like just one of those maybe two-story with an attic, but like kind of squished houses where it like
mhm.
goes into the living room and then the kitchen and then up the stairs to all the bedrooms. But like when you actually walk into it, it's like the living room and then this big ass kitchen because they all fit in it. And then you just go through a door, but the door is like a magical turn thing. So like so you just walk up it to go, and it takes you to whoever's room or whoever's floor. And it's just with like a hodgepodge of aesthetics.
Did they actually describe the house? Because like I also have like
No,
an image of, in my mind what this house looks like, but I don't remember them giving any details.
no, they gave no details. All I know is there's a front step, and there is definitely a kitchen that they all fit in, but it's supposed to be a tiny kitchen because them all being in it is supposed to be uncomfortable. But like, madame, if you can fit one, two, three psychics plus Blue, so that's four plus all four. If you could fit 8 people around a table, like I know they weren't all seated at the table, but that's not a tiny kitchen. That's like a decent sized kitchen, even if you're all squished.
But they did describe Blue in like her like style aesthetic, and I really like that they kind of said like she doesn't have like this effortless look, like she puts effort into having this sort of
She, she,
aesthetic.
she puts effort into looking bad.
Yeah.
Basically, it's
Yeah,
like she's
yeah.
like, I want to look like a struggling poor girl, but I need it to be a very specific kind of struggling poor girl. And I'm like, girl, I
Yeah,
respect.
despite the fact that we don't ever see Blue like at school or like in her environment, you still have like this idea of who she is because they give
So,
moments where they say like how she was accepted in or how like she fit in the social dynamic of the world. So I was like, okay, it just give the reader enough to paint their own picture of off-page things or how the house looked. Or I think Maggie Stiefvater did a really good job of like giving just enough and then letting the reader take their imagination.
yes. Also, like how she made the city feel like it's not just a bunch of disjointed locations, because like there's a part where Blue's like, oh, I just realized I walk by Gamzee's apartment every day. So then it's like, oh, Gamzee's apartment isn't just floating in a void over here,
Yeah.
it's like by a road that connects these things, but like never distinctly says these things are connected here or in this way. So it's like it doesn't give you a roadmap, but it does make the city feel like a city.
Yeah, yeah. It Henrietta, right? That's what it's called. The
Yes,
town or
Henrietta.
yeah, it Henrietta feels almost like also like a character in the story because of its ley lines and its history and the school with the Raven Boys, and it definitely had a dynamic setting, I think, of making it feel.
Oh yeah, Henrietta definitely feels like it is a character, and it is a character with like life and a
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah, because we know it has this elite school with people sending their children there who aren't from there, and then they have the actual people who live there, which are not affluent. And yeah, it definitely had a very good. I feel like I have nothing bad to say about the Raven Place. Like, I can't think of anything like
Let
too
me sink
negative to say about
deep
it.
down. No, I don't think I got anything really. And I know
Yeah.
I like no if there is something like no matter how much I like a book, if there's something that didn't jive or I didn't like, I'll usually, you know, say that or remember that because I'm like, oh, it was perfect except this one thing. But yeah, I think it's just how jarring the beginning can be, but that's all.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe the only thing that was kind of a negative to me was getting thrown into that large cast of
And needing to
characters.
make my own family tree
Yeah,
to keep
it,
track
it
of.
would have been good to maybe get like maybe a slower introduction and not just like here's everybody all at once. And like I don't think Declan the brother had to have been there that early because it was like muddling it.
It's
So
muddling it, making me wonder if Ronan was gonna be good or not. How dare they make me doubt my boy?
I could definitely see some people critiquing the fact like that I said like some of the magic and explanations were very like soft magic. How does this work? What's happening?
I will
What's going
ride or
on?
die for soft magic systems. You don't need to know how it works
Yeah,
as long as it works consistently.
I
Like,
loved the vibes, so I was here for it, but I can definitely some people might be put off by wanting to know.
yeah, it's that's just one of those hills I will die on because it's when like people need to know every single detail. I'm like, go read sci-fi. Leave my fantasy alone. That's not
Yeah.
what this is for. With fairy tale, like I love fairy tales, and that's like the basis for fantasy. And I'm like, with fairy tales, like they didn't give me a list of rules and shit on how the magic works. That's part of the intrigue. Is like part of the intrigue with magic is just how it works or why it works. That's
Hmm.
why it's magic. And yes, it's really cool when there is a hard magic system and you can have like the rules and stuff because sometimes that can actually lead to some foreshadowing and fun plot things. I just don't think it should be a requirement or like the lack of it, I don't feel should be a criticism.
I agree, and
Just
I
a
think
different flavor.
what also made this interesting was you kind of got to see the same magic or just magic in the world how it is through the two different lenses of like Gansey and Welk, who like came at it from like an academic looking back at Welsh history and then you
I
see
think
Blue, who was like they had a different name for the ley lines, like the road or the
the corpse road
corpse road, like they had
was
their own like
well, that was the specific ley line that ran through the church was called the corpse road.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind
I
of got to
like
see
that
two
it
sides of the same thing, like two lenses.
yeah, I would argue that there's like more than two lenses cuz just like
Ooh,
different cuz you've got Gamzee who's
yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, these are like the ley lines." So it's like, you know, magic electric energy. It's like magic science. And Welks is just he's like uh, he didn't seem to understand the ley lines at all. So for Welk, it's just like this is just like magic. This is a magic that I have been hunting to give me what I want,
Hmm.
and it itself is like it's alive and it wants something because it like took something from me and
Hmm.
didn't give me what I want. So he like sees it almost as an adversary to himself that he's like trying to appease to get what he wants. And then you have the psychics who are like, yeah, it's magic. Like that one, that's the corpse robe. It amplifies magic and everything. And Blue amplifies the magic of those around her and everything. So I like that it's just so many different things. And then like that one British guy just it's still all just his hobby.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that guy.
I'm trying to there was one thing that I wanted to comment on, and then my husband came in here and distracted me. I'm trying to remember what it was.
I'm
It
also trying to
was
think if there was anything else that we didn't cover.
it was something about the way they handled ah, it's gonna drive we're gonna end the stream and I will remember what it was.
um,
Should have written like 2 words down on a thing.
yeah, that happens sometimes. I just like again, I generally think this was really solid, and um, it would have been interesting also if Casey had been here since she was a rereader to get her perspective of reading it like in its heyday, I guess. um,
Casey, tell us in chat. Give us your
yeah.
thoughts.
So I
How
guess
was
I,
it reading it when everyone else was reading it,
because
and
that was
not
like
10
such
years later?
an interesting thing with Throne of Glass, which is was also 2012, and like has a lot of, I guess, people had talked about it, a lot of buzz around it, whereas that
Yeah,
didn't really stand up.
the contrast of reading something, or not contrast. Yeah, no, I was right. The contrast of reading something within the context of when it was released versus like years later is always a fascinating thing to compare for like me. Just using Twilight as an example, it's when Twilight first came out, everybody, or like it got super popular within the female demographic, regardless of what,
Hmm.
teen, 30 year, I don't care how old they were.
Yep,
Within the
exactly.
female demographic, it got super popular. And because of that, it got more hate than it deserved. And then people realized that and they went on an apology Twilight tour. But then, like, a lot of people read it, like, oh no, this book is still bad. It's just not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah,
So it's like,
Twilight, the love for Twilight like that I have is 100% on the nostalgia factor,
mhm,
where if I was a new reader today I wouldn't. Like whereas this coming into it new I could appreciate it. Like Throne of
yes.
Glass, like if you look at Callum or Emily who were on the live show who had nostalgia for Throne of Glass, like it was different for them. So I don't know. There's
I
definitely
missed
something to say
that
there
one because
about
wasn't that the July read?
the
Throne of Glass?
July or no May. It was in
Ah,
May.
yes. One of my busy
I
months.
had one other thought that also just escaped me.
It'd be funny
Was
if it's the same thought as my thought. It went to
well,
you.
I was thinking about that little raven,
Oh,
chain,
chainsaw.
which is
Chainsaw.
also such a cute
I
character.
remember. Okay. So, um, I have a theory. I don't want to know if it's right or not. It's for future books. But like her mom was really weird about leaving Henrietta. And I wonder if her mom was afraid that if she left Henrietta, Blue would disappear like like her dad did. So,
Yeah, I mean, Blue's dad is definitely still a question mark going forward in the series.
yes.
And
And so
also the cliffhanger with Chainsaw kind of being like, oh, I took him from my dream. Well, okay, we know the next book is
yes.
called The Dream Thief. So it's like, okay. Or Thief Dream. Is
The
that
Dream
called The Dream Thief?
Thieves.
Thieves. Okay.
There's
So, like,
multiple apparently.
we know that dreams are going to be part of it. We already knew ravens were a big symbol. And I think Chainsaw, like this little baby helpless raven, was such a good balance to Rodin, who was supposed to be kind of like the tough guy like
Like
character.
sad bad boy with pet he takes care of is
Yeah.
it is a very very old, very overused trope and I will forever be a sucker for it. Give it to me 8,000 times. I don't
Yep.
care.
It's just
It's
one of
so
those I
good.
feel like tropes that just turns people to mush.
It
So
gave
so
him
good.
something to live for, which he seemed to need at the time. So,
Yeah, it gave him also purpose. Like when you think about Gansey sort of parenting Rodin, and like you said, like calling even the school for him, it gave him the chance to be the a nurturer himself.
yes. That is Gamzee's grandchild now.
Grandpa
I,
Gansey.
I like when it's like they're like, let's go explore the forest. And Rowan's like, we gotta be back in 3 hours. I fed Chainsaw an hour ago, but he's like, he's on a strict feeding schedule for Chainsaw, and I'm like, I am here for it.
Oh, I thought of what I wanted to say. Talking about Twilight and how it kind of was a bash of like things teen girls like.
Hmm.
This book, and like I said, even the title, The Raven Boys, it felt very like teen girl book. But it
Yeah,
is very a male cast and male focused characters. Um, is this something that is just for girls, or do you think a male readership would appreciate The Raven Boys?
I don't necessarily think that anything is just for girls or just for boys. There are things that are targeted at
Yeah.
demographics, but like I grew I grew up in a very gender neutral environment,
Yep.
kind of like I have two sisters and then I have two cousins who were raised with they're like practically my brothers and like we were all into the same shit. We like almost all dressed the same for the most part. So I always feel as if I sound a little pretentious going into gender conversations because
Yeah,
I'm
but I
like,
mean,
I
I
don't
feel like it
really,
was a missed marketing
but
opportunity not to market it also for
I
boys.
feel I feel like if you look at the Raven Boys, it has the word boys in the title. So it kind of turns off a female demographic because a lot of girls, especially in like the YA category, they don't really want to read about boys. They don't really want boys to be the main character. They got to deal with that in every other media. So when they like look for books, they want to look for books where they're the main character. And like so I feel like the way like as an adult you can look at it and be like, "Oh yeah, that looks like a very teen girl book." But as a teen girl, you look at it and you're like, "But is it? But is it?" So I feel like it would turn off both. Really? Cuz boys would look at it like generalizing obviously. A lot of teen boys would look at it and be like, "Oh no, that is definitely a girl book." So, I don't know, I'm very conflicted.
Okay, so we were talking kind of about titles and like was the Raven Boys the title for it? I mean, it is what it is. But do you
It
think even
is
just calling it the Ravens would have been better, or is that too close to the Raven, like Edgar Allan Poe, too on the nose?
No, I think the Ravens would have been fine, or even I was struggling to think of another title that suited it better than Raven Boys because I do feel like Raven Boys is such a perfect title for it post reading, but pre reading, like when you're just picking up a book, it's you just have to know like the audience of the time because I'm looking at it from like teenagers in the when I was a teenager, so the 2000s. Teenagers now may have a very very different perspective. I like Blues Boys. That would have been like amazing, and I think would still have fit the vibe. Slightly misleading vibe, but still would have fit the vibe once you started like
But you said a murder was for crows or for ravens as a group.
a murder is for crows.
Yeah, see, because if it was for ravens, that would have been cool. Like a murder of ravens. That would
Group
have been cool.
of ravens.
That would have been a cool title.
Conspiracy.
A what?
Conspiracy.
Oh, see, yeah, if
It
it,
is a group of ravens. So it could have been like the Aglin Bee conspiracy. Or
yeah,
the what is the Welsh king called?
Glendower.
Yeah, Glendower's conspiracy,
I feel like
which
there's
would have fit
definitely
on multiple levels, but has the same issue of the title seeming too masculine
yeah.
to attract a female audience, but the book cover itself seeming too feminine for a male demographic.
But even like book 2 you said was the Dream Thieves, right? That's already I think a better title. I mean not for this book, but like just for the vibes, I guess, or marketing purposes.
Although to make sure that like I answer like the original question, not just the marketing of the book. I do feel like the book, like everybody could enjoy it. I think that because the way it's written, it doesn't demonize anybody for their gender, male or female,
No.
and that's always great. And it's written in such a way where everybody gets a moment to shine. And so like I do think that both girls and boys can enjoy it. I just think it's complicated to market it.
Yeah, I do think that the title holds it back a little bit, or just the maybe it is. I don't know. Like I said, every time I was talking about it, like in live streams, like read the Raven Boys, read the Raven Boys. Everybody was kind of like, oh, the Raven Boys. Like,
I think this is only a problem, like to be fair, I think this is only a problem now. I do think when it was published, the title was probably like great because we didn't have like 10 years ago would have been 2012. Yeah, that was like right around the time the market started becoming oversaturated. So I think it's just like people are just overcoming YA fatigue
yeah,
from the that so but at the time it was released, it was probably like a great title, very intriguing. I'm timeless, so I heard it and I was like, "Oh, I'm intrigued by the title." The cover is a yes. I was only hesitant because like I said, me and certain demographics don't often have the same taste, and so I was like, I hope I like it. Seems good.
I would have totally skipped this book if it wasn't for people in BookTube saying like, "Oh, this is such a nostalgic read." Like, and I knew the name, I'd heard of it, I recognized the cover, so it was definitely yeah, through BookTube, people talking about the book that made me interested in it.
I 100% expected the main character to be like some teen, like edgy teen boy, wearing like all black, like doing a whole like the Crow thing, maybe looking up the like getting revenge on his family. So I was wrong. I was so wrong. Well, Rowan maybe, but or Ronan maybe, but
Yeah, I like I said, I also went in this very blind with no expectations. So,
which I would love to be clear. I would 100% read the book about the edgy teen boy. That's right up my jam. I have no shame. I call myself an edgelord. I can I just sometimes when I say things like that, people think I'm criticizing something, and I'm like, no, I love that.
now, like I said, I don't have. I think I can kind of wrap up the discussion. I mean, we kind of hit on every point. Like you said, you've already picked up book 2, right? So,
I'm 2 hours into book 2.
yes, it ends on a cliffhanger. It opens enough questions that are unanswered to keep an intrigue. The writing style was solid. A very lovable cast of characters. Maybe lovable is the wrong word.
I love them all.
Okay, lovable then maybe is the right word, because I also love them. I just didn't know if that was everybody felt that way.
Not everybody likes teenagers. That's their prerogative, but I love these children.
Yeah.
I would murder for them.
They were the perfect amount of like pretentious book teens and also like real teens. So because sometimes book teens, you know how they can be, and these
Yeah,
had some of that.
sometimes
But
book teens written by adults who haven't been teenager in decades are a little exaggerated. So I get you.
yeah. So, do you want to introduce yourself, Sam?
Sure, I'm Writing Mom Samantha L. Nassett on my channel. I talk about writer things, parent things, and writer parent things. On Mondays, I host live streams where sometimes we do writing sprints. All of September, we will be doing writing sprints. Other times, we talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. And I also do parties and have started hosting a flash fiction free for all. If you would like to see a sample of my writing, you can go to my website, samanthaalnassett.com, and you can read a spooky flash fiction or a villainous murder story. Friday on the Worldwide Write-A-thon.
I was going to remind you if you forgot.
There will be. We're going to be announcing the dates for the October Write-A-thon and opening up host applications. The October Write-A-thon is our big write-a-thon, so we appreciate as many hosts as we can get our grubby hands on. If you like the nostalgia train, you can support it by liking the stream, subscribing, and ring-a-ding that bell so that you always know when Vi is going to do it, since it's not a set date. So
no, pretty random and unorganized over here. I just want to say thank you for Casey for being our supporter of watching.
For being
today.
Chat.
Thanks, Mom, she says. And yeah, and I would just like to remind everybody that the book club is doing Newbury Nostalgia for September. I have an announcement video somewhere. And our group read is going to be The Graveyard, book by Neil Gaiman. So if we want to keep the creepy vibes going, join in for that one too.
It's going to be my first Neil Gaiman book.
It was my second Neil Gaiman. I actually read it already back in May, and I have thoughts, and I'm excited for people to get their thoughts on him too. So, because I have a lot to say about it already. So, yeah. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to find the button to roll the outro. Bye!
Stand well back from the platform edge. The next train